armored convoys trying to move out of the area we were just moving through. One of the tanks has been hit.
Before Dan Rather went to the front desk, he went to the front lines.
There's a lot of talk about police brutality. For the worst, a Chinese invasion. There'll be more casualties. It's just before midnight in downtown Peking, and Mr. Nixon in recent days has appeared to be depressed. This is the year of the foreclosure.
Dan Rather, he's been there, he'll be there.
We all know and appreciate Dan Rather for his many years in broadcasting, but to fully understand him as a person, we need to look back.
I was born in Wharton, Texas, which is just below Houston on the coast. My father was a pipeliner, which is to say he dug ditches in which pipe was laid from the oil fields of South Texas. I actually grew up in the Houston Heights, and my earliest memories are of our house at 1432 Prince Street in the Houston Heights. The Heights has improved a great deal since I lived there. When I lived there, it's what would now be called euphemistically a transition neighborhood. I was always interested in newspapers. I can't remember a time when I wasn't, because my father, I think, was interested in newspapers. My mother read as well, but my father really devoured newspapers.
Dan Rather's dream of being in broadcasting became a reality. We've seen a few highlights, but let's look a little deeper in his amazing career.
We just have a report from our correspondent Dan Rather in Dallas that he has confirmed that President Kennedy is dead.
The investigation into the death of President John Kennedy and the possibly related death of a Dallas policeman. The lawman used nightsticks, clubs, tear gas, and cattle prods in breaking up 2 civil rights marches.
Most crusades against segregation in the South in recent years have used churches as headquarters. The Albany movement is no exception.
Correspondent Dan Rather reporting from Tuscaloosa.
So both of the Negro students are now in and through the doorway.
This is the 25th Infantry Division. The newest troops in South Vietnam.
Yes, 30 yards from the main gate of the main pagoda here at Da Nang.
Dan Rather, CBS News, with the 25th Division, South Vietnam.
Dan Rather, CBS News, Saigon.
No soldier worthy of the name will leave even a dead comrade on the field of battle and abandon him.
Take your hands off of me unless you're planning to arrest me. Wait a minute.
Well, Walter, as you can see, I'm sorry to be out of breath, but somebody felt me in the stomach doing that. The security people, well, as you can see, put me on the deck. I didn't do very well.
I'm Dan Rather. You used that to put a different kind of stamp on the meat than the store buyer put on his own meat.
I'm standing on the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, a border that is now closed to most everyone except refugees fleeing the Soviet invasion. These Afghan clothes I'm wearing were part of an operation to sneak me and the CBS News film crew into Afghanistan. The operation succeeded.
Great broadcaster and gentleman Doug Edwards preceded me in this job, and another, Dan Rather, will follow.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
This has been an historic day of emotion and remembrance here. Gathered together in mourning, the men and women of the Space Agency, the President and the First Lady, and families of the Space Shuttle crew. These are the last pictures we'll be showing to you through our own facilities, and if we're able to show any more at all, I know not when. This is Dan Rather, CBS News, Beijing.
I climbed up the Berlin Wall to get a better look at the East German side.
Go! Is it negotiable or non-negotiable?
الكويت جزء من العراق.
Kuwait is part of Iraq.
Shrimpy's restaurant by the sea became, in effect, a bunker for Iraqi troops. They left here in a hurry.
There seems to be some confusion about what your orders are.
As the president said, it's to make sure all options are open.
The U.S. military intervention in Somalia was well begun today, but it's not half done. Not even beginning of being half done, not by a long shot. The Serbs have indeed taken parts of the mountain. It is trench warfare here, reminiscent of World War I. It looks like Hitchcock himself prepared to see.
Evacuation should be hastened before it is too late.
This is, by anybody's standards, a hell of a hurricane. The great earthquake of 1994.
And we're on the upside of the hurricane, which is the worst side of the hurricane.
But look at this view out this window. Talk about heartbreak. The single most impressive thing that I've seen here over the last few days, and we've seen some incredible things, is how many people are pulling together to fight the river. Okay, that can just be hard work.
President Clinton says you must go.
Le président Clinton a dit que vous devez partir.
Your time is finished.
Votre temps est terminé.
You know that out there is a great American invasion force. If a caption writer were to put a caption under this picture, it would be unbelievable. He turned out to be a warrior and a statesman dedicated to trying to preserve the modern Israel. Rescue workers, heroes all, are risking their lives in the fading hope of finding still some survivors. The full light of day has now followed the chill of night as millions of mourners have gathered to honor the woman known now and forever as the People's Princess. Here in Calcutta, India, deep mourning for Mother Teresa. The heaviest bomb blast of the war shook his capital today as the outline of a high-stakes, high-risk military conflict takes shape between the NATO allies and Serbia's Slobodan Milosevic. From this suburban Denver community, in shock and mourning tonight is Columbine High School, now the site of the deadliest high school attack in U.S. history. New Year's Eve in New York, this is one of the biggest and friendliest parties this city has ever seen. A stunning and cowardly strike on the United States. Terrorists send mighty skyscrapers crumbling to the ground. Many innocent people are dead. The president vows the killers will pay for this attack on America.
Fire here was so hot, obviously these cars are all burnt down.
Operation Enduring Freedom is underway. Nobody knows where Osama bin Laden is. Today, on the streets of Kabul, people literally surround us wherever we go.
In his first interview with an American reporter in more than a decade, Saddam Hussein remains defiant.
America at war. Tonight, shock and awe. Baghdad has fallen. The U.S. military declared that his collapsing government no longer controls the capital. One of the hallmarks of Baghdad right now. This will continue for days to come. Tonight, from Baghdad.
On September 8, 2004, Dan Rather broke a story that would later end his career with CBS News. CBS and Dan Rather exposed a document that claimed George W. Bush had falsified his military record. This document would later be discredited, and the story was found to be full of false testimony.
On September 20th, 2004, you delivered a public apology for the 60 Minutes two-piece during your evening news broadcast. Let's take a look.
At the time, CBS News and this reporter fully believed the documents were genuine. Tonight, after further investigation, we can no longer vouch for their authenticity. The failure of CBS News to do just that, to properly, fully scrutinize the documents and their source, led to our airing the documents when we should not have done so. It was a mistake. CBS News deeply regrets it. Also, I want to say personally and directly, I'm sorry.
Tension between Dan Rather and the CBS executives continued to grow until he resigned in June of 2006.
We've shared a lot in the 24 years we've been meeting here each evening. And before I say goodnight this night, I need to say thank you. Thank you to the thousands of wonderful professionals at CBS News, past and present, with whom it's been my honor to work over these years. And a deeply felt thanks to all of you who have let us into your homes night after night. It has been a privilege, and one never taken lightly. For the CBS Evening News, Dan Rather reporting. Good night.
Veteran news anchor Dan Rather is now suing CBS. He filed a $70 million lawsuit earlier this week, naming CBS's CEO, president, and the network's former parent company, Viacom. Rather resigned from CBS Evening News after apparently reporting on a discredited story about Bush's military record. Rather says he was made a, quote, scapegoat to smooth things over with the White House. The CBS spokeswoman says the lawsuit is, quote, without merit.
For over 5 decades, Dan Rather reported the news. He had a wonderful way of bringing to life the big story. We remember Dan Rather for his journalistic accomplishments. Sadly, what will stand out to many in the end is the fact that he became the news. In fact, he was the big story. Take courage, Mr. Rather. We would like to see you again. This is Rachel Larson with the Dan Rather Project.
Dan Rather, CBS News. at Da Nang's main pagoda, South Vietnam.
With the presidential party in Shanghai, China. Reporting live tonight from Berlin, Germany. CBS News in Tunis. From Normandy. From Belgrade. From Oklahoma City. From Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Reporting from Hong Kong.
That's part of our world tonight. Dan Rather reporting for the CBS Evening News. Good night.